Hello, hello everybody. I'm so happy to give my speech, my talk to you from Hiroshima City. I am one of Hiroshima survivors, and Coventry is so familiar to me because once I had a chance to talk to on the elementary school in your town once, and so this is the second time. Until that time, I felt, wow, England is such a faraway place. I thought, but seeing children's faces, I was so happy. And today, this is the special occasion that actually, directly, I can tell my story. Okay, shall we start? どうぞ. I use PowerPoint this time. So I'm going to use some films using children, no, students' pictures. I will use some students' oil paintings which were made by Motomachi High School, that is in Hiroshima City. So, and now we start like this. This is so-called mushroom cloud, but I was under this mushroom cloud. And this is Hiroshima City 2 months after the bombing. As you see, the city was completely destroyed. So this film was made from the center of the city, from the hypocenter, Ground Zero, started from West End, so from west, and then now we are going to see the south area. Now you can see white part, that's Hiroshima Bay, the inland sea. Until the seashore, city was completely destroyed. And the camera is moving to east area. You will see some buildings left. Of course, those buildings are completely destroyed and stood like skeletons. People in the building and outside of the building, most of the building were burned like this. These were insurance companies, banks, and major companies' branches. Behind these buildings, there was the city center, downtown area. Now you see the chimney here, and behind this chimney, there is Hiroshima Station here, and in front of the chimney here, there is a hill. Can you see the hill? So I was the other side of the hill. That was 2.4 kilometers away from the hypocenter. This is Hiroshima City, and you see the red area that was completely burned down, and the yellow part was completely destroyed. Other white area was, of course, destroyed, partially destroyed, a certain percent. I was around here, 2.4 kilometers away here. And Seoul and Hiroshima Station is around here. So in front of the station, there is the hill. I was the other side of the hill. Can you see blue dot? This is the place where I was. This is just 2.4 kilometers away. You see, there were 7 rivers. So many people rushed to rivers. And then it is said soon after that, many people jumped into the rivers, and then all the rivers were covered with drowned people and the dying people. And then, even though I lived this way, but many people came soon after the bomb. And that this is the place I was born, 1,000 kilometers away. Within the radius 1,000, about 60% of people died. So this is the area of Peace Park now, but before the bombing, this area was very nice city center, downtown area, many shops, movie theaters. And then I used to come and enjoyed with mother. I came here. But when I was 6 years old, I moved here. You can see number 24. And then number 24, there was the elementary school. And then Hiroshima City is here, not so big in this picture, such a huge area, so-called black rain contaminated with the radiation fell. I was here, and then I was experienced black rain. So this is the picture you saw. And this is the elementary school, but just a little bit before bombing, one day my father said, Keiko, we have to move a little bit to farther place from the city center. We have been wondering why Hiroshima is not attacked until now. Many major cities started to be bombed those days. So I moved, but some of my classmates still going to this elementary school died. As you see, my school, former school was like this. And so in front of Hiroshima Station, there is the hill, Futabayama Hill, we say. And then you see the gate, we call number 13, there is a shrine gate where I lived near the shrine. And during the war, people were told, in case something happened, go to shrine, Shinto shrine or a temple, and that there will be first aid station and doctor, because people believed that and they rushed to even the area where I was. And then, so the fire reached to my town, even though 2 kilometers away from the hypocenter, the fire reached and this area started to burn. I was so scared. And then there was a park where my father cremated the victims every day. In the park, there were hundreds of dead bodies, victims. So father said, don't come to the park, he said. This is the park. And this is my elementary school. Before the bombing, I was going to the school every day. Those days, how was the education? And from 9 to 12 years old, and grade from 3rd to 6th grade children had to evacuate to the mountainside with teacher in temples. But I was 8 years old when the bomb was dropped. I lived in the city, so I have experienced atomic bomb. But not only that day, a little bit before that, sometimes we had air raid, or I should say gun shooting from airplanes. You see, this is my picture. I am crying. Why? Do you know? Because while we are going to elementary to my school, and time to time there was gun shooting, airplane came. One day, when I was in the shelter, there was a tremendous, uh, big, fearful gun shooting, bah, 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 like that. And then I was in the shelter, but when gun shooting stopped, I opened the shelter and saw part of my house was burning. If I were outside of the shelter, I might be shot. I know that. So even though I went to school, I was so scared when teacher said, okay, now you hear silence, that's the air raid warning. Run back to your home and they jumped into your shelter. My teacher said, I was only 6 or 7 years old that time. And I was crying because I was so scared. And always I said, Mom, help me, I might be shot from the airplane. This is my picture. And those are my classmates. This is the day when 6th of August, when the bomb was dropped. On that day, in 1945, August the 6th, my father said, Keiko, you shouldn't go to school today. My father said, so I complained. Why? Although my classmates already went to school. I want to go to school, my father said. Keiko, you know, last night was so strange. Around midnight, all of a sudden there was an air raid warning. Hearing silence, we rushed to the shelter and then waited. Nothing happened, no sound. Then, what's that? We wondered and returned home and tried to sleep. And then soon, again, another air raid warning. We rushed to the shelter, waited. Nothing happened. Several times it happened. That was the first time, and that was so strange. Father said, we might have something today. Then actually around 8:50, there was a tremendous bright flash. I couldn't say anything. Everything turned just white. And then secondly, I was blown by the blast. I was unconscious. I was beaten on the road. When I opened my eyes, this is the picture that the high school student painted after hearing my story. You know, in the darkness, I could see something was burning. That was the barn, the farmer's barn or cottage that was made of a straw. A roof was made of straw. So when there was a flash, instantly flammable things started to burn. This is one of the, that means in the center of the city, many people still alive caught the fire, and many people and running away with burning clothes. So many pictures you will see. And the soar trees, and even though the dead leaves of the hill caught fire like that. There was a first flash, and the flammable things start to burned immediately. Secondly, there was a strong blast. I was unconscious because I felt like I was in tornado and in typhoon. I felt like that. And then in the darkness, at first, there was no sound. First sound was my little brother's cry. So hearing that cry, and I thought, oh, my house must be this way. And I returned home. This is my home. Ceiling was blown up, and then roof tiles were scattered, the houses were broken, and the hundreds and thousands of glasses, pieces of glass stirred, pierced into the wall. If somebody were behind glass doors, and he or she might be hurt badly. My father was here, but fortunately he was between opening glass doors, and he was safe. And then my little brother appeared, and saw bleeding. He was bleeding from his head and crying badly, and but was not so bad, not so serious. I step out. Then outside, everywhere, my neighborhood was damaged, broken badly, and then all of a sudden, black rain started to fall. On the other hand, my elder brother, and he was almost 14 years old. He was working in the city. Those days, junior high school students from 13 to 15 had to work, especially 13, 14 years students, first year, second year, were working in the city. So you see some white area, and here, George white area, and those were buildings, and the citizens and the students broke these houses, buildings to make fire break or spaces to go. And then there was a big road, and most of the students were working on this big road. Now we have the Peace Boulevard, and the Peace Park is here, and the museum where I am now is here. So my brother was working here on the previous day of the bombing. But on that day, younger students, 13 years old, over 320 were working here. My brother was second year, but the first year students here, all of them died. Nobody could survive. And then here, this is after. And then inside a mold, there was the military base. In this space, there was a bunker, and 50 years old girl students were working and in the bunker with the receiver, hearing the informations from east area, from Tokyo, Osaka, now enemy airplane is coming, and the report to the commander in the bunker. And the commander decided to release the time to release a red warning, They were working, divided into 3 groups and rotated. That means one of my friends was working in the bunker, and miraculously she could survive. But most of the students died because inside here was broken in the bunker and then burned. There was another group waiting outside of the bunker. Most of them died because it is so near from the ground zero. And like this, many students, most of the students were working in the city. And this is Hiroshima train station. And then my house was here. You see, this is the hill. And then I was the other side of the hill, so I could survive. And then my brother on the 6th, previous day, he was in the park, hypocenter near, but on the 6th, he was transferred here in the potato field. All of a sudden, there was B-29, the bomber appeared. All students were looking up, oh, that's B-29, and he could notice something was released, a black dot that was an atomic bomb. But he was so lucky, a second before explosion, and he turned back because Enola Gay, the name of the bomber, B-29, dropped the bomb and they changed the course and they disappeared. My brother tried to chase the airplane and turned back. Then the bomb exploded in the air. All of the students, almost 1,000 students were working this area in the potato field, and then they were beat on the land. My brother was unconscious for a while, and then when he came to himself, many people were rushing, coming to the hillside. Many people thought there is the train station, there might be train to go suburbs, but there was not. Many people already, some of them died. Some of them were almost going to die. Such a place, many people rushed. My brother was surprised. Those faces were swollen up, skin was peeling off, and then they were coming to. My brother climbed up the hill and they saw the whole city. City was burning, and even he saw a big cloud. He returned home shouting, "Mom, Mom, here." On the other hand, we were here, and then we have experienced the bomb, and then we thought our town was the target. Everybody in Hiroshima thought the bomb was dropped above us. Everybody said. Actually, the bomb was exploded in the air 600 meters above Hiroshima city. And then my brother climbed the hill and then coming back. He had burned. And then, but my mother thought at first, oh, you are a lucky boy, we had the bomb. My mother shouted. And my brother said, no, Mom, Hiroshima city is burning. This is not the city, the target of the ground zero, he said. And then he explained, we couldn't understand. My brother said, I saw a single bomb was released. City was instantly destroyed by a single bomb. And moreover, he said, many, many people were coming to my town too. And soon fire was reaching to my area, and this area started to burn. I was here, around here. I was so scared. Fire is coming. And moreover, many, many wounded people were coming, my brother said. And then I step out and I encounter the people make a line, and they're like a ghost or zombie, stretching their arms, and the skin was peeling off, and they burnt hair, and they're coming quietly. in front of me. And my house was near Shinto shrine. The people were thinking to go to the Shinto shrine. They believed that there must be the first aid station. This is the soldier I saw only, no doctor, only one soldier holding, having one tin bucket with oil and apply, burned, the victim sufferers burned. Everybody said, only water. Somebody seized my leg and said, give me water. Hearing that, I ran back and got water and delivered. Everybody, some of them were dying almost, thanked. But in front of me, two persons drinking water from me died in front of me. I was shocked so much. What did I do? This person, those two persons died. Why? Next day was like this. Next day, I saw the whole city was completely burned. But actually, city was like this. City was full of victims. Everywhere, people started to cremate those victims until the seashore. Until the seashore, we can see the, line of smoke of cremation. There was a park where my father was working with those victims of cremation. So father said, don't come to the park. Not only this area, also in my neighbors, many people were dying every day. In the morning, somebody was moving, afternoon stopped to move, in the evening, and they were dead. I don't know why I could see them. I could stand seeing them. Seeing those not moving people, I shouted, hey, this man doesn't move. Already he's dead. And then somebody came and took him to the park where my father was working. So, and in the evening of 6th of August, my father asked me, children, you didn't give water to the wounded people. My elder brother said, oh, I didn't give water because I know we are prohibited to give water. If we give water, they would be dead. So I was frozen. I was so scared. I did not know such kind of saying. So from that moment, I stopped to talk about what I did and what I saw. And that became my trauma. Every night I saw nightmare and I blamed myself, Keiko, why you did such a thing? You were a stupid little girl. And then I had a hard time. It continued more than 10 years or so until the day I told one of my friends, I did such foolish things. Because of that, two persons died in front of me. And then my friend said, no, it's not your fault. Whether you gave water or not, that is their duty to die. Not your fault. She comforted me. And since then, my nightmare stopped. And on the other hand, the elementary school kids, they were moved they had to move to the temples in the mountain area. Those children, and they were not told what happened on 6th of August. They did not know, but there were many letters of information. Your father died, your sister died, your brother is dying, such kind of information in the envelope. Teacher was scared to tell such news to children. And then the teacher was hesitated to tell. But when Japan surrendered, the day was August 15, Buddhism pleased to open the main door and said, children, what can you see in front of you? Children said, oh, image of Buddha. Yes, Buddha. And behind the Buddha, you cannot see, but already your parents, your sister, and the brothers are in the heaven, sitting with Buddha. Children were surprised and burst into tears. What shall we do? What shall we do? Now we are orphans. They started to cry. Out of 30 children, 28 children had such news. Somebody lost their father and the fathers or sisters and so on. And around midnight, children were so scared and escaped from the temple because they were so much scared. We are orphans. Who can protect us? We will be killed by the station army, American or British soldiers. Let's go to the mountain to hide, because there was very bad education. In case Japan will be defeated, all the children will be killed by enemies. The teacher threatened children. This is 1945. Over 2,000 of Avon orphans returned such a place. No houses, no food to get. I used to see many children, orphans were living in the broken buildings. There was not the orphanage for a while. Even 1 year later, and on the island, Hiroshima Island, finally the orphanage was built. But the numbers of orphans who could live in that orphanage was only 700. Many had a hard time. But in spite of such situation, Hiroshima people started to reconstruct the city. And 3 days later, in short distance, streetcar ran. Streetcar, mechanic worked so hard, tram car. And then we were so happy. City was dead, but only one thing that was moving was a streetcar. That is the symbol of hope. And the people started to have hope. If we work, and then we can make the new city. But that was so difficult, though. This is 4 years after the bomb. 4 years later, we got the special law, and we got the budget from the government for reconstruction. And this is the beginning of building, making the Peace Boulevard. those days, such houses, only those kind of houses we could see, but the most of the people could not live in the center of the city. 12 years later, city was like this. Still, houses were not enough. But anyway, you see, this is some storage, and this is the signs of the doctors. We could go to the doctor to consult. But soon after the bombing, another fear we had, that many people without scars, without burned, started to die. You know, a couple of days later, all of a sudden died. So in my neighborhood, there were some people I was talking to, but all of a sudden died. That was radiation, but we could not know, we did not know the word radiation. And then, moreover, there was a rumor, you shouldn't get married to the people who were in the city. You cannot have a healthy baby. Those babies will have mental retardation and so on. Such kind of bad rumor spread. So even though I was a little girl, 8 years girl, my classmates stopped to talk about atomic bombing. Many people stopped to talk about, but just to think about the future. We shouldn't talk what happened. Forget such a miserable thing, because the world could understand what happened using nuclear weapon, we thought. But 10 years later, we learned there was another threat, that was building another nuclear weapon, that was a hydrogen bomb. And then we heard some nuclear test in Pacific Atoll. And many people suffered in other countries, and in America, also in other countries. So the first time we had the international conference against nuclear weapon. And then museum, we had, 10 years later, we had a museum of atomic bombing. So now, Peace Park is like this. We have the senators. Through the senators, you can see the so-called atomic bomb. And before called atomic bomb dome, that was the industrial promotion hall. But now we leave that as the symbol of a reminder of the threat of nuclear weapon, you see. Underneath of the stone, the monument, there is a stone. It is said in Japanese, 過ちは繰り返しませんか。安らかにお休みください。You know, it is Japanese. This is English. Let all the souls here rest in peace, for we shall not repeat the evil. This is we survivors' pledge, because we have such experience, and then we shouldn't repeat such an evil thing. We means not only Japanese people, but we means all the human beings, you and me, everybody should not repeat the evil. And by the August of 2021, this number of victims' names were recorded. in a notebook and kept inside a stone chest. Okay, thank you so much. Now I would like to stop. So this is the volunteer group I'm belonging to, Hiroshima Interpreters for Peace. And then here, we call HIP HIP. I am a director of HIP. But if you can see, HIP Hiroshima, hiphiroshima.org. If you click here, and there is an English website, so you will see explanation of Hiroshima, and we are going to add more and more names, more information there. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. Listen to me.
So, on behalf of all of the schools in Coventry, we would like to thank you for sharing your testimony with us and for sharing your story. I have some questions that the children have prepared. Please, may I ask you the questions?
Yes.
So,
question, Roger.
Holy Family School would like to ask this question.
Yes.
So Holy Family School would like to ask, what did you and your family do in the years after the bombing?
Well, most of the schools were destroyed. And then, you mean after the bomb, how many schools were left? Most of the school in the center of the city destroyed. And my elementary school was broken battery, but we share and, school buildings and like junior high or some other elementary school students came. And then we shared to study. But we started to study. So next spring, because all the schools were used as the cremation place or the place to help and those people fleeing from the center of the city. That means even though children living far away had to see those victims, because at the school buildings, many dying people were left and died. Children carried them to the center of the ground for cremation. They have an experience like that. And also in the center, as you see, the first one, nothing left. Actually, within radius 2 kilometers, all broke. But there is only one school, Honkawa Elementary School, very near Peace Park. And inside, that was made of concrete. The concrete building was left, some like a skeleton. And then the basement was left. Still now they keep, and as it was on that day. In the school, miraculously, and all the students died except one student. One student, 8 years old, was in the basement, Honkawa Elementary School, next to the Peace Park. And she was in the basement, so she could survive. And the crowd and came out from the basement. And there was one teacher also, she could scarcely survive. I met her, the teacher, later, and she told me how she could survive. She was surprised holding that 8 years old child, and then she was in the, under the T bridge, Ayo bridge, all night in the water. Then they could survive miraculously. This is the story. And then most of the schools were destroyed. All the schools, you will see how many there were destroyed. But I live, and the fire reached my school, but and the people tried to put out the fire. Then my elementary school was broken, but scarcely could could stand. Then many people rushed, and that was used as a first aid station. Later, and we used at the school buildings. What we did every day, we have to help to clean up or mend the school, and most of the windows without glasses, and then in the center part, students started and had the class outside, under sunlight or on the banks, because no school buildings. And then moreover, people couldn't live for a long time until toward the end of that year. By and by, we heard, and radiation will be disappeared, we thought. And then some people returned. My house was not burned, but the badly damaged. But so many of my relatives came. Right after the bomb, my house was full of those wounded people. All night they were mourning. And then, my uncle, he was behind the glass door, had over 20 pieces of glasses on his back and bleeding, and they came. Oh, my sister was so busy and picking up those pieces of glass, and then inside my house, outside, too many dying people or wounded people. We had a hard time. It's difficult to imagine. So because of that, we really know what is the menace of nuclear weapon. Of course, any kind of bombs were so bad, but especially nuclear weapon, a single bomb. People say atomic bomb is just a baby bomb, but by a baby nuclear weapon, a single one destroyed the whole city. And then now still have an influence. None of my family died soon after the bombing, but later my brother, who was behind the Hiroshima station looking at the airplane and saw the bomb was dropping, First, he had the radiation effect, and he had the cancer, and I had, now in my brothers and sisters, and then only he himself passed, and but there were so many people who died after the bombing, not only and hurt, but the radiation. We asked the doctors why people are dying without any scars. So that was shocking. And the parents, who is at the next door, and the parents were outside of the center of the city, but the son didn't come home. So parents entered and then contaminated, and they became sick. There are so many people. Some people enter the city after the bombing, died before their bombed children. Such kind of story. Yes.
Thank you. The
Yeah.
children from Earlsdon Primary School have asked, does the radiation still affect people today?
Rebecca, could you give me some moment? Let me ask Miss Ogura to answer the last question.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank you.
I didn't.
そう
どういうふうにしたの？
小倉さんの家族は原爆の後どのように過ごされましたっていう質問が来てました。
Yeah, and I told you before, none of my family members died because my brother by himself, he returned. And my family was so lucky. He was in the center of the city, like his younger students from his school died because they were in the Peace Park area on the 6th. My brother was behind the Hiroshima station, and that is around almost 2 kilometers away. Because of that, he could survive, even though he had burned and returned home. Then my father didn't enter. If he entered the city to find out my brother, then he might be contaminated. That was so nice. And also my the other brother, he did the evacuation, and he saw many children burst into tears because many of them lost their family. And then, so I am so happy. But what we did was, my father was every day going to the park and worked for cremation. And then, so my sister couldn't step out of the or from my house because many people rushed to my house. She was so busy and taking care of them because the house was full of the smell of pus and blood, and many people came. And so that was the case, my family case. So we are so happy, and we didn't have any person who died. Okay, that's my situation.
Thank you. The children from Earlsdon Primary School would like to ask you if the radiation still affects people today.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, you mean the last in the city? I don't think so concerning the city on the air or so, on the building. But radiation stays in our body. That is true. And then many of the people couldn't have children, some of the survivors couldn't have children and they affected. And then always there is a comparison. We compare the people who were not in the city and outside of the city, whether not affected or affected by radiation. But we have a strong fear, the doubt. We doubt. Whatever the doctor said, we might have weak children or so. Until the last moment I delivered my baby, I had the fear. But I have 2 children, son and a daughter, thanks to God. But some couldn't have healthy babies. But we cannot say this is because of radiation or not. And moreover, and guilty feeling. That is the typical invisible scars we have because we couldn't help people and leaving them in the fire, At first, they were still alive under the crushed down building, and the parents tried to pull them out, but the secondary fire reached and they left them. Their children were still alive. Mom, help me, help me. They were screaming and they left because the fire reached and the building started to burn. So many parents and feel so guilty. Why I survived? They were so young, my children, but then they died. So that is one of invisible scars we have. Radiation, we have fear, we do not agree with that there is no effect. I don't know about the second, third generation, fourth generation, the influence. Still, doctors are studying about the influence on DNA level, genome level.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have another question from the children of
Yes.
Howes Primary School. The children have asked, what have you used as a coping mechanism? How have you coped in your life to deal with such an experience?
How do you not 書いてある？これ見とけばよかったね。ごめん。どこ？
ここです。
Have you used as a coping mechanism って何？ I'm sorry. Coping mechanism to help you.
So how have you managed to cope in your life dealing with having lived through such a very difficult experience?
このような悲惨な経験を自分どのようにして乗り越えたかとか対処したかってことです。
So, and it was the difficult part because first to overcome hatred, many of survivors had a hard time to overcome the hatred and the sadness. I myself, with the other classmates, first tried to forget. During 10 years, what we did was first forget about the past, not to think about. When we think of past, I see nightmares, recall those days. And then try to forget and try not to talk about. But later, we found that many sufferers from America and also Pacific area and contaminated by radiation, by nuclear test, they came and we met each other and found they had the same kind of fear we have about the radiation. And also many people and who suffered by killing field, by war, battles. I met those people and they talked to each other. And then we thought the world, all the people in the world have to share what we learned. We should have a real hope and peace that came from not only one nation, one country, without having solidarity and understanding of all of the world, we cannot resolve the problem. We could overcome that the sharing and the talking and the studying each other what is happening in the world. So that means as young people like your school children and learning, studying is the first step to overcome and to do some kind of peace activity. In my PowerPoint, there were some pictures those are painted by high school students. And then some people are playing music using the exposed bomb or the piano through music, through pictures, through drama, through, talking. You can overcome understanding as a worldwide solidarity, I think. So this is today like this. We share my story thanks to you. This is the first step of very important thing for me, and talking my story, and I found out very eager audience. Those audience are my vitamin pills, I am so happy, and that you are vitamins, especially young people, school students, children.
Thank you. And the children at Templars Primary School have asked, what are your hopes for peace in the future?
Great. Yes. Let's work together. Let's pray and work. Please find out something, what you can do. And I have been running. Now I am 84 years old. Until now, I have been working, and then I want to give my baton to you, and keeping the baton. Please keep on. Please run and try to find out to the goal and what you can do, to reach the world of peace. Yes.
Thank you. And we have one final question from the students at Cardinal Newman School, and they've asked, in what ways can we make sure that this does not happen again in the world?
No, of course not. This is our hope. So how we could overcome is through telling my experience to stop that no one will experience such an evil thing. Yes, as you say so. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much from everybody in Coventry. Thank you for your time today, Ms. Ogura, and thank you to the Hiroshima Peace Museum for making this possible.
Thank you so much. Yes, waking up early in the morning. Yes.
Thank you. We very much appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
We're very grateful. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yes.